the lady who brought forward the suit against the Trudeau Foundation has been harassed. And in fact, John McBain, who I think was noted as the largest single donor, took her aside separately at the behest of the foundation to try and bully her into retracting her claim.
That's a strange position to make when we lack the clarity of the truth here. That's why I'm of the belief that a public inquiry is important, and we've spoken about that, and it's something that members of the foundation have disagreed with.
But the only thing they found illegal was that this individual released secrets that are illegal to release. Imagine if the journalist had written, "We're not releasing the identity of the source because the pedophile would be subject to a prosecution under the criminal code."
Do you know what the contribution limits are for donating to a political campaign in this country?
I think it's about $2,000, something like that. If I were doing it, I'd go for the expatriate community. I would get a whole bunch of expats to pay $1,700 to put somebody in my pocket.
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
I worked within the public service for over 30 years.
Of Deputy Minister by Prime Minister Mulroney, and then served as Clerk of the Privy Council to Prime Minister Chrétien. And I continued to serve as High Commissioner to the United Kingdom in the first government of Prime Minister Stephen Harper. I am now actually not a professor, although my students call me that. I am titled a Distinguished Fellow at the Monk School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. And from 2016 to 2018, perhaps relevant to this hearing, I was a mentor for the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation.
When you were as a mentor, were you a mentor at all at the same time as Stephen Cactfui?
I believe I had known Mr. Cactfui before when he was premier of the NWT. I think he was at the St. John's meeting I mentioned.
Okay. Are you aware of the sexual harassment suit against the foundation?
Only from what I heard you. Only what I heard you raise at the committee. I'm not aware of anything more.
Let me ask you, you mentioned you were a mentor to two students, and I think it's phenomenal. Are you aware of the rather over-the-top paperwork involved, including contracts? I understand it's a 60-page agreement that students have to sign, giving up a fair amount of their rights?
I don't know. I looked for the contribution agreement between the government and the foundation online, and I came across that, rather the agreement between the foundation and the students. But other than that, I don't know anything about it.
So you're not aware of the two students you mentored having to sign such forms?
I know they had to sign something. I don't know what it was.
Apparently it's about a 60-page agreement that limits a lot of their rights for protection under such issues, and also to perhaps to speak out or hold the foundation legally accountable and liable for any actions they take. I'm curious, like, if you look at, say, the Trudeau Foundation as it's set up, based on your experience, your rather extensive experience, how would there's a fair amount of taxpayers' money, $125 million, which is about $206 million in today's dollars, so getting up there. How would you propose that parliamentarians would hold perhaps the board accountable for that money, their actions? And the reason I ask that, I look at the scandal with Hockey Canada, which is not a government organization, but receives government money, the same with Gymnastics Canada. And I see parallels, in a way, between the actions of the two taxpayers funded. How would you think, in your experience, parliamentarians should hold them accountable for that money?
So with all due respect, sir, I think you should hold the government to account, first of all, but that the contribution agreement, which was signed between the government and the foundation, should be the means by which they're held to account. It's a subtlety and it's a small point, but it's not an insignificant one. My my only failing is I spent much of my career in the Treasury Board Secretariat and spent a lot of time worrying about exactly these issues. Given that the federal government was giving so many grants and contributions, whether it was in sports, as you noted, or in the case of scholarships, we need to have a way of or the government needs a way of holding them to account, and Parliament needs a way of holding the government to account.
I want to go back to another comment you mentioned about a worry about the foundation not getting the best students because of the politicization. Are you familiar with who John McBain is?
I know of him. I've never met him.
Because I want to go back to your comment about not getting the best students. Do you think the abhorrent handling of the sexual harassment lawsuit has anything to do with perhaps students not wishing to apply? And I bring this up because the lady who brought forward the charges or the suit against the Trudeau Foundation has been harassed. And in fact, John McBain, who I think was noted as the largest single donor, took her aside separately at the behest of the foundation to try and bully her into retracting her claims. Do you think maybe that has something to do with the best students not wanting to be involved in the foundation?
I have no idea.
Did you see any of this going on when you were, remember, because you were at the same St. John's conference as when these allegations were put forward?
I did not see anything like that, no.
Oh, okay, thank you. I want to get back to the foundation, the charitable status. Question, like we've seen, the issue with the donations from Communist China. We've seen that apparently the foundation is not following their obligations under the CNCA requirements as a soliciting corporation. I think it's 8 years now. We've seen that they haven't been following their disbursement obligations. Do you think the foundation should be audited by the CRA?
I really don't have a view on that. I mean, I assume that the foundation has independent auditors. Anything incorporated under the Not-for-Profit Corporations Act would have to have independent auditors, I assume.
Enron and a lot of other companies had independent auditors, but I get your point. Let me just ask, just want to go back to your time as a mentor. Was there any training given to the mentors around dealing with younger people? Any sexual harassment training? Any HR training around that? Guidelines provided?
There's certainly nothing on sexual harassment. I mean, my God, it should go without need to remind anyone. But still, there wasn't. But there was a session.
It should go, but apparently it didn't go. Like, did you receive anything? Because you're a man, you'd be a mentor, person of power, prestige, and these young people are forced by the foundation to have a mentor. It's not an option. They have to have a mentor. So you would think the power differential is quite significant. So was there anything, any advice, any training that you had to go through, anything you had to sign off on before taking a mentor under your wing?
There was, I don't recall signing anything. There was a session we had the day before the first meeting we had with our mentors, or our mentees rather, and we had a group of former mentors and us newbies in a session where we talked about what worked and what didn't work, and I found that quite useful.
Thank you very much.
You made a distinction between a leaker and a whistleblower in reference to your comments about the allegations of foreign interference and participation of that by the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation. That's a kind of evidence that I find to be quite interesting and a kind of perception and perspective that I think is very interesting. Why do you say that?
A whistleblower is someone who sees illegal activity and wants to make sure that it is dealt with. A leaker takes something that's a secret and releases it. I mean, right now, if you're watching what's going on in the United States, the president of the United States has been indicted for taking secrets away from secret facilities. At least in his case, he keeps it in his bathroom. In the case of the leaker, he took it out into the public. That's illegal. I mean, imagine if...
So you're confident there's nothing illegal, even though you didn't serve there during the time of these allegations?
I haven't seen the document. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but you're confident that it's not something illegal?
I read the article.
And so by that judgment, you believe it's not illegal?
I can be proven wrong.
Well, then maybe a public inquiry could help you with that.
Well, I don't assume that it's illegal.
Well, I think the part that you have assumed, though, is that it is not illegal by making a reference to the fact that it's not a whistleblower. And so I'm saying, Mr. Cap, that's something that's a strange position to make when we lack the clarity of the truth here. And that's why I believe, just like you, I think that the truth is most important and should prevail here. That's why I'm of the belief that a public inquiry is important. And we've spoken about that, and it's something that members of the foundation have disagreed with. But I'm trying to get to the bottom of why they believe that. Sure. And you've made a very interesting position that you believe it's nothing illegal is going on because... Well, if it was
illegal, Bob Fife and Steve Chase deserve to have their licenses to be journalists removed, which they don't have any anyway. But I mean, if they found something illegal, they should have written about it. But the only thing they found illegal was that this individual released secrets that are illegal to release. Imagine if the journalist had written, "We're not releasing the identity of the source because the pedophile would be subject to a prosecution under the criminal code." You wouldn't accept that.
And thank you very much on that. I suspect we'll come back to this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Cap, for being here today. I just want to follow up on an earlier question. I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. Did you say that a donation of $170,000 to the Trudeau Foundation would not be enough to buy influence with the government?
I said that if I had $140,000 or $200,000 or $1 million, I wouldn't spend it that way if I was trying to exercise influence. I think it's an inefficient way of doing it, and they're not stupid.
What do you think would be a more efficient way to buy influence?
A more traditional way of taking people out for coffee and dinner and giving them a refrigerator and a stove and maybe a car. Don't make me into a terrorist or a spy, but I think there are more efficient ways of doing it. In response to Mr. Desjardins, if I would have had the time, I would have said, this is not new. Go back to 1945, the Guzenko inquiry.
Okay, with all due respect, Mr. Cap, I am almost out of time, but you have to go for a lot of lunches and a lot of coffee to get up to $170,000, you would have to agree.
My point exactly, sir.
Okay, but do you know what the contribution limits are for donating to a political campaign in this country?
I think it's about $2,000, something like that.
It's slightly less. And so is it really that difficult to imagine that if an agent of the communist regime in Beijing wanted to buy influence with a political candidate and found out that the contribution limits were $1,700, is it that unreasonable to think that that agent might go to Google and look at, what other entities in this country have the same name as the current prime minister and try and buy influence that way?
No, it's not unreasonable, but if I were doing it, I'd go for the expatriate community. I would get a whole bunch of expats to pay $1,700 to put somebody in my pocket.
Okay, well, that's. Are you aware that is what has been alleged with the case of Mr. Dong?
I do understand that, and that makes a lot more sense to me.
Okay.